Good evening, YouTube. Vampire YGO here again with another deck profile per usual. I hope everyone out there is staying safe and still enjoying Yu-Gi-Oh! As much as they possibly can while we're in this drought season. As you can see here, I am building an Evilswarm profile. This is a more pure build, and this is one of my favorite decks of all time. Definitely one of my favorite archetypes. This is a deck that, only 2 or 3 throughout time. Once decks they would come out, I'd try to make them work no matter what format is going. Pretty much from the time that these cards came out until the point that Master Rule 4 came around and put a straitjacket around a decent amount of decks that, they never gave really good link support or didn't really have that kind of support at the time. Obviously kind of killed the deck, but other than that, I've always tried to keep this deck going up until that point, and it's always a good rogue contender, especially if it catches people off guard. It's always, I would say most of the time, a going first build that you would want to go with, and this is more of a kind of like a control variant of that deck. And since obviously Master Rule 5 is back, this deck is pretty good. It's definitely not, I wouldn't even put it in tier 2 or possibly even tier 3 at this point. Still think it needs a little bit more consistency. I'm still trying to figure some things out with it, but I've been testing a lot since Master Rule has been updated, and this is pretty much the most consistent build that I can find. I haven't seen too many profiles online for an Evilswarm builds yet. I've seen a few mixtures of them, but this is more, like I said, I want to keep it as kind of pure as possible for, I guess, consistency with, the darks and the rank 4s. And I know MCole40 has a profile that he's been talking about, but he has not posted it yet, so I'm still waiting on that. But other than that, thank you guys again for your time. Please like, comment, subscribe, dislike. If you guys dislike, please let me know why. And other than that, let's get right into the video. We have 3 Evilswarm Heliotrope, one of the coolest normal monsters in the game that I think. What do you want to call it? I want to say like the bio to it, not the effect for the normal monster, is pretty interesting. It's all backwards. It says eliminate, eradicate, exterminate. These are the thoughts of the lingering steel swarm souls yearning for a body so that they might make their dream a reality. Pretty trippy. They're all kind of villainous-esque type cards. If you look, they're all different versions of previous cards that have already been out that were usually like good guys are part of other archetypes, and then they've pretty much kind of been infected by the infestation, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, not card, but the infestation theme, I guess you want to go with it there. But they all have that Evilswarm logo on them there. It's somewhere on their bodies or somewhere on them at some point in time. Some of them you have to kind of look to see it, but they're pretty cool. They all have an extra 50 attack points on top of their actual original attack that's based off their monster that they're stolen from. So that way it's kind of just like an insult or slap in the face, like, ha, like I'm you, but I have 50 more attack points so I can beat you. And then that's also what gives Ophion a really good edge as well. But 3 of this one because you do run Rescue Rabbit, and also there's a few other ways to get this card out a decent amount. You want 3 Caster. This is probably the best regular monster in the deck. It's normal summon, then you get to extra normal summon another Evilswarm monster from your hand. So it's just a double summon basically for another Evilswarm. So you pretty much hit him, whatever Evilswarm monster you have in your hand, and there's an instant Ophion right off the bat there, or depending on what situation you're in, another rank 4. And then obviously 3 of that, you want to see that one as much as possible, and it is a warrior, so you can use reinforcements on it. I know some people play 1 or 2 of these. I just put it at 3 for the consistency. Again, this one has a really good grave effect. It allows you an extra normal summon as well. It's a 1600 attack, and then pretty much what it does is when this one is in the graveyard, you can banish 1 Evilswarm monster to add another Evilswarm monster. So you have to have 3 in the grave total. Essentially, you have to have him, 2 others, banish 1, or I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually have 2 and then banish him. I'll have to look into that one again there, but then you take one of the other ones to your hand, and then you can extra normal summon that turn. And he's a pretty trippy artwork too. I think he's one of the coolest ones. He's a spellcaster, and then obviously some of these, like he was taken over by the Shaddolls, and I think he's a Satellar, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember for that one. And then we got one Mandragora. This is more for going second for this card. It's pretty much if your opponent controls more monsters than you can special summon it. So it's the one. You can even like maybe side two more if you need, if you think you're gonna have to have those in there. The side deck is basically side deck. I'm not gonna show that one for this build either, because it's, you know, the meta is kind of undefined at the moment, and it's pretty much still your typical basics. I would say Droll and Lock is still really, really good for the amount of decks that search these days. And then obviously Ash Blossom is just a good go-to. DD Crows, the Psy-Frames, and, you know, Nibiru's, obviously, Twin Twisters, so forth. I mean, it's kind of at whatever you kind of think of. Before, I used to tell people to kind of, you know, go with their locals, but these days, there is none. So you have two Thunderbird. This card I would actually take out. I only have two in here because I cannot find my other two Unexpected Die for some reason. I've looked pretty horrendously to see if I could find it. For some reason, I cannot find my other two Unexpected Die. So I put these in here for the consistency of Allure of Darkness, but this one's pretty cool. It does have some pretty useful effects depending on what kind of board you can have. It's more for a follow-up play. What it does is you can banish it and then return it to your standby phase the next turn. And then we'll get into the, oh, sorry, I do have one. I don't know why I was bringing that one out. Sorry. Two Lunas. This is a pretty cool consistency card as well. You can banish one of your dark monsters. You usually want to banish the Heliotrope if it's in there, or one that you're not going to reuse. You typically do not want to banish this one or the Kirkion. If the Kirkion's the only one, then go for it. But usually the Heliotrope is going to be your option. This one is you banish one dark monster from your graveyard, and you can special summon it. And then it also has the effect of you can, during your standby phase, or during the standby phase, essentially you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent there. But it's really cool to get an extra rank 4 on the board, or you can use this. Like I said, I have a little bit of spice in this deck to kind of catch more people off guard. But this one came out in the Chaos Impact. It's a pretty cool card for dark decks. I was running it at 3, but 3 was just too much. I was just seeing doubles of it with the draw power from this deck, and I was not feeling it. So 2 has actually been really good. You have one of the dopest cards that was pretty much always ran in this deck as well, obviously, for this guy. You have the Rescue Rabbit. Everyone pretty much knows what he does, if you at least were around back then. But if not, you normal summon him. You can banish him to special summon 2 level 4 or lower normal monsters from your deck. And then again, that's an instant Ophion with double of these, or another rank depending on if you already have Ophion out. I play 1 Infestation Pandemic. I was playing it at 2, but you just do not want to see this card in your hand whatsoever, and pretty much 1 is enough. You only need to really protect them for the 1 turn, or 1 pretty much targeter, I guess, from spells and traps, just to kind of keep them from a lightning storm, things like that. But this card is all face-up Evilswarm monsters you currently control are unaffected by your opponent's spell and trap cards. And then, like, I used to run, I think, 3 back in the day, but 1 is just perfectly fine now because you search it from the effect of Ophion. You're going to have 3 Allure of Darkness, the best draw card for dark decks. There's plenty of cards that you can banish. Not all of these are important. There's a few different strategies of ways that I will show you here during the video that can get you a pretty good board. But like I said, this deck don't expect it to be a meta contender. It's hardly a rogue contender in my opinion, depending on how expensive you go with the actual deck itself, with, you know, like Evenlies and infinite impermanences and things like that. But 3 Allure of Darkness, it's obviously not a once per turn, and there's plenty of cards that you can banish with this. You see plenty of darks in that deck. 1 Upstart, 1,000 life points, draw a card. Explains itself. 1 reinforcement to the army so that you can get the Evilswarm caster. And this guy right here, he's the only warrior that's in the deck anyway. But yeah, extra search power. He's your extra normal summon. Like I said, I would typically be running the 3 Unexpected Die, but for some reason I cannot find the other 2. I think they're in a deck somewhere, or one of my cores that I have put away, but I have so many cards that I looked through most of my stuff and I cannot find it, so I'll have to do a deep search for it. But what this one does is if you control no monsters, you can special summon 1 level 4 no normal monster from your deck. This guy, again, so multiple ways of getting this card out. The caster, the Rescue Rabbit, the Unexpected Dies. You can see all 3 copies in a turn, a decent amount of time. But like I said, 3 of this instead of 2 Thunderbird. this is some of the trickiness in here. I was playing at 3, but again, seeing too much with the allures and some of the draw power. 2 is perfect. You almost always see this card. It's great going first. Again, like I said, you pretty much, you know, I'll show you a pretty good combo that you can do, which is pretty much the best case scenario hand that you want to expect out of this. But double summons are, you can do an extra normal summon in addition to that turn, but you can only use 1 double summon per turn. And then 3 Called by the Graves, because this deck does not do well against hand traps. It can be pretty bad depending on what they stop. So you really want to see this one or hope that they don't have something to really stop them. Sometimes if they haven't stopped you by the Ophion at that point in time, sometimes they'll stop you from searching the infestation so you don't get it. And then last but not least, the spice for the deck that some people may not remember, but a decent amount of people ran back in Evilswarm back in the day. 3 Mask Change 2. So obviously what this one does, if you, or at least I wouldn't say obviously again, but if this card, if you don't know what it does, is basically it's like the regular Mask Change, but except you don't have to use a hero monster, you just use a monster. So essentially that has the same attributes, so dark with this one, and then it has to have a lower level. And then basically you discard a card, target him, and then you get Dark Law on board. And there's, you know, the rest of your monsters besides the Rescue Rabbit are all dark monsters at that point. So obviously what happens is you're just going to take one of those guys and use them. Ophion plus a Dark Law, nasty. I mean, let me show you really quick like what best case scenario would be. Like I said, you have plenty of cards to search. It would pretty much be, you know, normal summon, caster, get out a Heliotrope, play the double summon, Rescue Rabbit, banish. You have 2 more on board. Like I said, if you didn't do this before your summon, you could have used Unexpected Die, and then so forth. So you hit an Ophion, you can get Dugaris the Timeless to draw more trap power. You can get, I mean, you know, obviously this is a search for it as well. There's so many different ways that you can get to at least 2 Exceed monsters on board, or at least 1 Exceed monster plus, which would usually be Ophion plus the Dark Law. But there's multiple times where you can end on a Ophion, Abyss Dweller, or a Evilswarm Nightmare, and a Dark Law, which is a pretty nasty board. It's pretty hard to beat, but, you know, it's not the craziest thing. We have up next, obviously, the trap cards for the control style. We have, let's see, for some reason I thought the flashlight on my phone went off there. 3 Crackdown, still one of the craziest freaking cards in the game. I would also maybe side deck like a Mind Control maybe in this build with the 2 Mandragores to even it out for 3, a set of 3 there. But obviously you know what Crackdown does. Crazy. Yeah, it's 3 compulsory, kind of like the Zodiacs. I just really find myself liking this card with control, especially when they waste a decent amount of materials to make a high link or a fusion or a synchro, and they think that's gonna start extending their plays, and then you just hit this and they're like, ooh, like especially hitting this with a needle fiber is pretty cool too. But there's a decent amount of stuff that you can do with compulsory, obviously. And then 1 Imperm, like I said, there's so many different traps that you can use in this deck in general. I mean, everyone knows that's out there. There's evenly matches, there's anti-spell fragrances are really good right now, and just, you know, there's plenty of trap cards that you can use. So kind of, you know, test what you want, but this is kind of what I've been going with. So I suggest if you want and give it a try. It's really consistent from what I've seen. At least for an Evilswarm build. Like I said, don't expect it to be as consistent as a meta deck when it comes to searching and kind of comboing off. It's pretty much setting, like I said, an Exceed or 2 with a Dark Law and some trap cards on the board there. And then, like I said, there's no really hand traps in this. You can also throw those in there as well. And then I run the 1 Imperial Order. Again, another like a floodgate there. So imagine having Ophion, and even just Ophion by himself plus the Imperial Order is really hard to deal with, depending unless they have something to destroy one of those 2 things. But that's it for the trap cards. Like I said, yeah, you can swap out like compulsories for 2 more infinite impermanents and maybe put like a get out in there or something. And next we have the extra deck, and I do have it all 15s. Obviously to start it, I just like starting off with him because he is one of my all-time favorite monsters. And I mean, he's just got one of the best effects in the game. This guy's crazy. So for those of you who do not know, when he hits the board, no level 5 or higher monsters can be summoned. So again, remember, level 5 or higher, so they can still link away and they can still get off other Exceed monsters there. And then you can also remove one material from him or detach material to search the Infestation Pandemic, which is your protection card, again, to protect him from spells and traps. You don't usually want to use it that turn. Like I said, you're going to set it if you're trying to go first, or if they're going to try to disrupt you or something like that, you can activate it while you have the Ophion on your turn. But you always want to keep at least one material on him, because his Floodgate effect does not remain on board if he does not have material. So you want to keep at least one material on him, and unless you can make another Ophion, that's why you have the backup here. And then he's 2550. He's a pretty beefy boy. One Bahamut for the stealing of your opponent's monsters. He's pretty much discard an Evilswarm monster, and then you can take over one of your opponent's face-up monsters. And then you have Exiton. He's another one you can make instead of Abyss Dweller or something too. You can set him on board. He's just a freaking dark hole that keeps himself out. And then we have the Evilswarm Ouroboros. So we got Bahamut. And as you can see, again, his effect too, or I mean, his attack is 2350. Always got that 50 on there. It's pretty weird. Exiton's the only one that does not have 50 on top of it. He's got the 1900, so I'm not sure if maybe the monster that he took over wasn't already at 1850. Interesting. And then you have Ouroboros DT, 2750, and he's basically a rank 3. You don't even need to use all Evilswarm monsters. With these guys, you do need, or at least not Exiton, but with Bahamut and Ophion, you do need to use an Evilswarm on, at least one Evilswarm monster on there. And an Ophion itself is actually 2. So I guess actually, yeah, sorry, you do have to use 2 Evilswarm monsters for both of these, not just 1. And then him, you just need 3 level 4 monsters, and then he has a different variance of effects. You can obviously target one card your opponent controls, return that target to the hand, send one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, or you can target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish that target. You don't really make him too often. The Bahamut's good for going second as well, or kind of a grind game, or if you're keeping it rolling with your trap cards. Evilswarm Nightmare, like I said, he's kind of one of your secondary options that you want to land with if you're not going to put the Dweller out or go with the Dugaris to get extra trap cards maybe from your draw power from Dugaris the Timeless. But what he does is basically when your opponent special summons a monster, you can detach an XYZ arrow from this card to change that monster into face down defense position. I don't know why my camera's having a little bit of issues. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing it on your end there, but the focusing is kind of messing up. And then you have Dugaris the Timeless. This guy's crazy. I know a lot of people have kind of been giving him attention just before the Master Rule got big. He's, again, 2 level 4s. You can either skip your next draw phase, draw 2 cards, and then he has 2 various other effects, but that's the one you're going to want to go with to try to get some trap cards or try to get a card to draw to discard for the mass change if you ran out of resources there. And then you have the 1 Dweller. I mean, king of locking out the graveyard. You have a Castell, and there's so many rank 4s and other cards and other links and stuff you can play with this as well. I'm just kind of showing off some of the rank 4s that go really well. Solving problems, the Time Thief Redoer. You got Daigusto Emerald, which is a classic to obviously, oops, sorry. You do have the vanilla. Another way of getting them out. Like I said, that card just sees the board. Tornado Dragon for pesky spells and traps for going second. And then the only people hate, Mr. Baguska himself, sleeping away. He's obviously protection and defense. Most of these you don't make besides, like I said, the Dweller, the Evilswarm monsters. Usually, depending on, again, like I said, your situations. 1 Dark Claw for the mass change, and then my 1 Link, which again, you can use any pretty much Nightmare monsters are really good, but I choose to use the Unicorn because you can do Ophion and get the Unicorn out sometimes as well. I had Monster Reborn in this deck too, but I just find myself getting it at the times that I did not need it, and it was just kind of a dead card. Like I said, going first, it wasn't always the best option, but seeing the Luna plus the Monster Reborn just wasn't the greatest. But yeah, it's definitely still works out there. If you guys find any better way of doing so or find some cool builds or have any tips, please let me know. Other than that, if you guys like the video, please give it a like or a comment or subscribe. If you dislike it, please just let me know down in the comment section below. Again, I hope everyone's staying safe out there and still enjoying Yu-Gi-Oh! As much as you possibly can. And hope, you know, bless the polls for the Secret Slayers while you guys are out there. Have a good night, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I should say.